The following episode contains language and descriptions of violence and self-harm. It may not be appropriate for all listeners, but it was my life. Discretion is advised.
What up, what up? Welcome back to another episode of Roll Call with Chappy. You know I got a treat for you guys. Wearing pink today, just like myself. And I am doing it for breast cancer. He likes pink. But
I like pink. A lot of pink in my life, yes.
All right, introduce yourself. The anti-lawyer. I think you have a real name though, right?
Yeah, I do.
All
right. Byron Browne, formerly, or I guess always known now as the anti-lawyer. And most people know me as that. Not Byron, but yeah, Byron
Tell
Browne.
a little bit of like the nickname and stuff, and then we'll get into your whole story. But like where that comes from, and a lot of people, I feel like everybody I told that you were on my show, they're like, no way, like everybody knows your name. So you're doing a good job branding.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, so guy who created GoDaddy, name's escaping me.
I don't know.
The guy who created GoDaddy.
Bob Parsons.
Bob Parsons, right. So before the pandemic, Bob Parsons had, I'm trying to remember now. Sneaky big, we can edit this, right?
Yeah.
Big Yam. Okay. So yeah, the way that my advertising came about was I hit up Big Yam, which went out of business right at the beginning of the pandemic, but it was Bob Parsons' media company. And he uses that still to this day for PXG and a bunch of other companies.
Okay.
But I went there. I wanted to shoot a TV commercial. I knew I had to be different because personal injury is a very competitive market.
For sure.
I'm a tattooed guy. I swear a lot.
You already had them and stuff?
Already had them,
right.
yeah.
Neck and everything?
Neck and everything, yeah. And so then when I went to them, they sat me down in a 2-hour meeting with a bunch of marketing experts. And then they came back with this idea of the anti-lawyer. Like, hey, you're a lawyer, but you're not like most lawyers. Which it's funny because I feel like that's kind of like the natural understanding of the words, but most people don't get it. And they're like, so you're not a lawyer or you are a lawyer? Anti-lawyer,
so do you
not
charge
a lawyer.
fee rates still?
Yeah, still like all the average stuff. But that's the way I got my start. And then we shot the TV commercial at Sneaky Big, which still exists, which is Bob Parsons' company up in Scottsdale. And that's what kind of took me off. We started marketing, I think now it's 4.5 years ago.
Wow.
We've had a pretty good run of it. I'm going to shoot a new commercial coming up, which I think is going to be better than the first.
Are a lot of your clients, are they people that legit like what you think? They don't like traditional lawyers, so they come to you?
I think so.
Or do you get a lot of people just like tattoos, and they're just like,
I think I get things that run the mix, because I actually thought maybe
they just feel more or less like a relationship and like similar to you, so that, you know, right?
Right. Well, when I started advertising, I thought I was going to get a certain demographic. And I thought most of those people were going to fit like one specific demographic, mostly men, probably in the 25 to 40 range, probably in the lower socioeconomic range.
Why'd you shoot for that?
Well, no, I didn't. I just assumed, right? Like a white guy who's tattooed. So I naively thought, hey, I'm probably going to appeal to this, to like guys who like sports, like anyone who likes the NFL or whatever, which was fine by me, because I was like, look, if I don't appeal to the 4 million people in this valley, that's fine. If I get 5% of them, I'm going to be able to make a pretty good living. But what I found out is everybody likes it. Like I've had families that come in with, a child who's seriously injured, and they're Mormon, who I would typically think might not like me because of my mouth or looks, right? Yeah. And then I've also had African-American female
You are from
priests.
Canada, your mouth.
My mouth.
Your mouth.
Yeah, I draw them out, man.
Sorry, keep going.
No, but then on the totally other end, I've had like an African-American female priest and everything in the middle. So I think, to your point, I think people are just sick and tired of traditional lawyers, that fat white guy that people typically
That's
saw.
what sent me to prison for 12 years, so I paid him money for that too.
See, and people hate those fuckers. And so when they get a breath of fresh air, so to speak, that actually I think, obviously I know what I'm talking about, which I would say most marketing lawyers don't know what they're talking about. Most marketing lawyers are marketing lawyers who haven't really lawyered. Like I've tried 38 jury trials. Like I'm the real deal all around. And so I think all of that appeals to people.
Trials are stressful.
They are really stressful. Your trials are different than my trials. I'm sure your trial was a lot more stressful than my trial.
Either way, you get to go home after your trial, huh?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, not mine either. You go home or your life's over. Just about. Anyways.
Bigger stakes with yours.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into, I always like to get into the whole upbringing of how they grew up. So how'd you grow up? And you were from clearly Canada, because I just threw your accent on blast. But
no. So I basically grew up in Calgary, Alberta. I was born in a small town south of Calgary, Alberta, Brooks. But for the most of my life, especially my adult life, I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. My family owned a steakhouse, Hawaiian pizzeria. So I was the dishwasher, I was the waiter, I was the maitre d', I was the manager. And then after I graduated high school, I thought I was going to get in the family business. So I went to a hotel and restaurant management course at SAIT, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. Funny enough, Jerry Maguire came out. I failed my accounting class. I saw Jerry Maguire. A bunch of my boys got drafted in the National Hockey League. So I was like, fuck, that sounds cool. Like, I'll manage their careers. I'll get to hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
So then I learned what went into getting into law school, which I needed an undergrad. I hadn't had that yet. And
You're always really good in school?
No.
Really?
I graduated high school with a 53% average.
Stop.
Yeah. And then I only got into...
Number 4, you're my 4th guest that's graduated high school on my entire podcast.
Oh,
so
really?
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I figured you did. You're a lawyer.
I just did. But yeah, no. And then I got into college just because I was a senior student. And down here, up there, we don't have community colleges.
Okay.
But it would have been basically, I got into a community college, transferred to the University of Calgary. And then my first year of law school was out in Massachusetts. And then I finished my last 2 years of law school at Arizona State.
Oh, all right, cool. So I want to get into like behind the scenes stuff that people don't think about, because like when you have an addictive mind and stuff, like I feel like mine was pretty bad. So like I ruin everything. Like when I'm using and drinking and stuff like that, like there's zero like working. There was no going to school for me. You know, like how did it hit you early, or were you not experimenting too much with alcohol and stuff at that age?
So it's funny. I grew up as a doorman in a bar. I left that part out. So after the restaurant career, I got to
ask you what was off limits, but we'll put it out.
No, nothing's off limits,
okay,
man.
cool.
No, I'm an open book.
Cool.
But I started working in a bar, and I lived with 2 of my buddies who were also doormen in the bar. And so, you know, we went to work. We'd wake up at noon. We'd go lift, right? And then we'd roll into work around 7 or 8 o'clock because we worked the front door. I don't know how it works down here, but in Calgary, at least in the time, you could get grease, right? So we were at a busy club. Guys would come up, grease us. We were making good money. Like Calgary Stampede, biggest cash outdoor rodeo on earth. I think still over those 10 days, I made 60 grand just off of grease on the door.
No way.
So I was out partying. I never got into like any drugs, but I was the guy who'd drink everyone under the table. Then when I started being a lawyer, I really think it was the profession that drove me to alcoholism. I fucking hated being a lawyer. I hated working in a traditional firm. I had fucking partners in that firm actually ask me if I was part of the KKK just because of the way that I looked. So I knew right away I was probably in the wrong profession, but it took me a minute to realize it, which, you know, I probably had pretty strong alcoholism for 3 to 5 years. I always drank, but it got out of control for 3 to 5 years. We moved here. That's when I got sober. I had some people, I don't know how you got sober, but I had a couple people who were like, hey man, like, what's going on? And had a really nice conversation with me. And I remember to this day, I said to him, and he was like, hey, I go to AA, I go to these meetings, this is what I do. And I'm like, hey, how do you know if you're an alcoholic? He goes, people who aren't alcoholics don't wonder if they're alcoholic, right? Yeah. So that got me into AA. And then
people who are alcoholics, if bad stuff happens to them, they're just like, well, I'm not doing this no more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no, when we're like, well, I got to just change the drink up that I'm drinking. You know what I'm saying?
When you're a degenerate,
vodka
like,
gets me angry. You know, if I drink Jack tonight, I'll be a happy drunk. That's
there
what
you
people
are,
think
right?
Like that, huh?
Yeah, tequila will get you into a fist fight, right? Like, hey, if I stay on beer, I know I'm not going to be too crazy. But no, I went through all those iterations.
How old were you when you moved out here?
So when we moved down here for law school, I think I was, 21, 22.
Wow, okay.
And then graduated law school 2005, moved to Vegas. We were there 7, 8 years.
When you say we, who moved down? Who's we?
Right, so good question. Met my wife.
Okay.
She was the front door girl at the bar I worked at. Yeah.
You have a bar front door security relationship that worked out?
Well, listen, and that's the thing. I always say, if you worked in the bar, you know this, right? I worked in the bar, and I always said, I'm never going to fucking date a girl in the bar because we know what happens, right?
Yeah.
So I remember always thinking that, but she was the front cash girl, and she never went out with all the party people or whatever. She was kind of like the unicorn within that setting.
Yeah.
And it was funny. One day I walked in, it was cold. It was it was October, and we were getting ready for Halloween pub crawls. And so I'd bring extras like wool socks and toques and gloves.
She happened to be cold?
And I walk in and she's wearing my shit. And I was like, oh, hey. And I didn't really know her at the time. And so I was like, hey, I kind of need that stuff. But then I was like, hey, you probably need it more than me. And so it was awkward. And then I asked her out from there. And but she's been with me, man. Like, I don't know about you, but she's been with me through the good, the bad, the ugly. And she's rid it all out. And I always wonder. At times I've even said to her, I'm like, you know what? Like, I know I'm a fucking different dude and I'm a weird dude, but I feel like it says more about you choosing to be with someone like me.
How did you stay with, like, it eats you up, and how did you stay when I did this to you?
100%. 100%. Like, it's blown me the fuck away. You want to talk about someone really caring about someone? It's someone seeing you go through that shit and stand by you, because I mean, you can say what you want, but until you've done it, it's hard to say that you'd stick around.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, how bad did it get for you?
It was bad.
We all have different degrees of what's rock bottom for people to,
no, 100%.
To make it stop, you know?
So I would say, like, for me, it was, I'd get home from work. So I've never missed work. I would show up. So I guess maybe you'd say I was a functioning alcoholic in that way. But then I would drink when I'd get home. Jack, you know, Bud Light with some clam, you know, maybe a box of wine. But like I was crushing, like I'd on the weekend.
Classy.
Yeah, I you know, I like to keep it classy, but I'd crush like a 40 of Jack and maybe 6 tall boys on a Saturday. Yeah. And then I'd wake up and I would do it again. And the kind of funny story is my buddy was getting married in Maui. And so I was out with the boys, right? Hadn't seen the boys in a minute because everyone's back in Calgary. And so we were there for 8 days. On the 8th day, they were doing a bridesmaid photo shoot. And it was like, Bridesmaids Gone Wild. So they're trying to think of what to get, right? So my buddy Ab and I like walk down and there's these 7 or 8 bridesmaids, all with 60s of Jack in their hand, empty 60s of Jack. And Ab's walking down and Ab says to me, he's like, hey man, he's like, oh no, he gets down to the group and he goes to the ladies. He's like, hey, where'd you guys find 7 empty 60s of Jack Daniels? And my wife goes, oh, that was our room. And he looks at me, he goes, bro, you've drank a fucking 60 of Jack a day when we've been in Maui? And I go, yeah. And he goes, that's a problem. I was like, oh shit, man, maybe it's a problem.
Like, I thought we were having fun here, right?
Yeah,
This is vacation, right?
Like, I was just fun Bobby, man. But no, then so that was another epiphany where I was just like, fuck, and that didn't get me sober. It was getting back to Vegas.
I want to hear some war stories. I feel like you got a couple of war stories with some shit that got bad when you're drinking.
Oh man, I'd be.
Was there any like certain instances where you're like that like cut it off the next day or?
What do you mean, like cut it off the next day?
You know, some people, you'll have something bad happen. Like wake up in jail. Clearly you didn't wake up in jail because you're still a lawyer and you have your license. But like if there's like you had a horrible night and the next day you're like, all right, fuck it, that's it, I'm done for good. Or was it just a culmination?
Fuck, I'd do that every fucking night, man. I'd wake up every fucking day, you know, and be like, what the fuck did I do? You know, like, I got to change. I got to stop drinking. Maybe you just got to stay off Jack.
What was it? That's what I'm saying. So what was the light that finally clicked for like, you've told yourself that every day, but what made you finally the day make a change?
I think it was this other lawyer, and I won't mention his name, but he's in Vegas, and he just came up to me and he goes, hey, listen, like, this is what I do. Like, I'm an alcoholic, and I go to AA, and then that's where I was kind of like, okay, like.
Find someone with common ground though, because
100%, 100%. And it was a good conversation. Like, it wasn't judgmental. He was just kind of like, oh, hey, like, you know, people who aren't alcoholics don't ask that. Like, he goes, hey, what are you doing? And I would
you
explain
at that point, you're still naive to everything. You're thinking about like, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Huh?
Honestly, man, it might sound stupid to people, but I honestly didn't think I had a problem because I was functioning, right? Yeah. It wasn't causing me to like lose money at work or anything like that. But now looking back on it, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, it's just a mountain of regret. Like, happy to have gone through it. Like, I wouldn't be where I am because of it, and I firmly believe that. I learned a lot of lessons. I'm not trying to say I'd undo it all, but my regret is I feel like I'd be way further in life if that part of my life didn't exist. But at the same time, I can't say I'd be where I am with the same frame of mind if I didn't go through that shit.
Because going through that shit teach you a little bit more grit and like makes you like know to have your back against the wall and to make it like believe in yourself, because there's times that no one in the fucking world believes in you.
No one would. Yeah, no one would. And I think that's the thing that and I'm sure on some level you're the same way, but that's why I'm not embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why the fuck would I be? I'm a guy who fucking survived alcoholism and is now a very successful lawyer. And I don't say that patting myself on the back, but I just say like, hey man, you can fucking do it. Like, just like you, like, hey, you can go to jail, you can get out, you can do it. Anybody can literally fucking do this. But most people don't want to do it.
How long has it been for you now?
March will be 8 years.
Okay. I'm 6 in July.
Okay.
So what was it? Do you remember what it was like the day you decided to stop? What made that day different to actually changing?
It was just that conversation.
People like you fascinate me. The people that can hold a job, like not get crazy into drugs, and like still like you're full on a functioning alcoholic. It's like, how is that enough to make you stop when you are an addict? You know what I'm saying? Because I think at one prison wasn't even enough for me. You know, I still got to mess around. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until like I literally died and was like, what the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm done. You know. So
this is the moment I forget, and I shouldn't forget because it always makes me a little emotional to talk about it, and you'll see why. Is I was in the Albertsons. If you're familiar with Las Vegas, I was in the Albertsons kitty corner to Red Rock Casino. And I was in aisle 9, the soup aisle. And I was on the phone with my wife. And she was telling me that she didn't have enough money to put gas in the car to take the kids somewhere. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, shit, I'm in the soup aisle because the soup's the cheapest item in the fucking store, right? And I remember thinking, I was like, man, like, what a fucking, like, I was embarrassed. No one around me. Yeah. Like, I'm standing there and I'm fucking embarrassed for myself.
For sure.
Right? I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? Like, I'm not this fucking person, but I'm this person. Right now, at this moment, I'm this person. Sure. And I don't know my thought process thereafter. I just remember being like, fuck, dude, you got to make a change.
This is enough.
Yep. And so for me, like, getting sober sucked. Like, it fucking sucked. I always say I wish I had the money to go to rehab. Like, when I see motherfuckers go to these rehabs that are all nice, like Passages of Malibu and shit, I'm like, oh my God, that'd be like the dopest thing ever, right? Like, no, I just sweated out like a monster on my couch for 3 days with painstaking anxiety until I could somewhat function. And then it was head down hard work. I just was like, hey, shit, man, I've lost time.
Because once that's what I share about this almost every week. Like, once that switch flips in your head like that, once you can turn that stuff into all the excess shit you're putting into drugs and alcohol or whatever it is into like positive stuff, like, we are legit unstoppable. And like, that's why I say, like, no joke. And this is the first time I'm happy that like I'm an alcoholic and addict because of that. You know what I'm saying? We have that in our brain, and once we can just like figure out where the hell it is and turn it on, like, and I always say this, we have an advantage on the rest of the world. I firmly believe that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Bill, I think it's that for me, I can never have one.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I'm glad I never did drugs, because I'd probably be fucking dead. Like, if I did a line, I'd fucking do 100 fucking
I told him
lines.
that last night. I was over there to ask him about drinking. I was like, I don't have an off button. If I did, I'd still drink. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the thing. So now what it is, it's about like this shit, about like social, about business, about I can't turn it off. Just like I couldn't stop drinking, now I just can't turn it off. But it's positive. It's kind of annoying at times because you want to rest, which is one of the things I think that dropped me to drink too. Was, I couldn't turn the brain off, so I'd fucking drink, and then I would just keep fucking drinking.
You got sober in the rooms too?
Pardon me?
You got sober in those anonymous rooms too?
What do you mean the anonymous rooms?
Did you use AA or just got cut off?
Sorry. Sorry. Went to AA. But I only went to AA. Again, I'm a firm believer you need to do whatever you need to do.
Everything works for different people. Whatever it is.
I'm sure guys in the program, they're going to tell you first 60 days, meeting a day, can't miss a fucking meeting,
all
right?
That shit, yeah.
So my sponsor told me the same shit. I just wasn't that dude. I'm not a dude that wants to sit in a room with 12 other people and share. Yeah. I apologize, but that's just not me. So I started seeing a counselor, and I found one that specialized in addiction, and I went to him like 3 days a week for probably a year. So just to like learn about myself.
And that's where you show what works for everyone's different, because I went to, I think it was like 167 meetings or something like that, my first like 90 days but I was out of prison. I'm 7 months out. I still don't have a job or anything. Like, I had nothing but time to go to meetings all damn day long. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I had literally nothing going for me in life still, you know?
See, and I got nothing wrong with the meetings.
Yeah.
I just felt like I got more out of like a one-on-one session, right? And again, I'm a firm believer, man, do what works for you. I know people that would be like, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done your 12 steps this. Like, some guys that are so fucking regimented. Yeah. I'm like, why? Like, have
to work the steps you're down. Like, I never have.
Yeah.
Still.
Like, the goal is just to get fucking sober and stay sober, right? So if that means like I walk a fucking mile a day, I'll walk a fucking mile a day. If it means that I go to 167 AA meetings, like, do whatever you got to do, man.
And that program is just like anything else in life. Like, you're gonna get some meetings that suck, and you got a bunch of those old judgy dudes that'll pull up in their expensive ass cars and judge you for doing shit. You know what I'm saying? And then you got other ones that are like, I like the gutter, like hood ones, you know, like with a lot of the youngsters and stuff. So, but it goes with anything. You can find whatever you like, and you can look for differences or similarities. You know.
See, and the great thing about it that I think anybody who's looking at AA, and I mean, maybe this is bad to say, but I remember sitting at my first meeting, and like you hear a couple people share, and you're like, oh shit, like, these people are fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost weird to get me like, oh, so I'm not.
But it is kind of refreshing because then you can hear someone does some shit, and I'm like, and I remember I've been in meetings where I'm like, what the fuck? Who would do that? And I'll be driving home like, I would have fucking done that too. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And we've probably done worse, but it's just, there's comfort within that misery, right? Of knowing.
Oh, it's crazy when you see someone that you swear has never even like jaywalked in their life, and then they go off with some shit, and I'm just like.
See, it's funny, man. I always say, like, motherfuckers that look like us, everyone always assumes certain things. The people that you don't assume shit about, that look like they're everyday Jim and Jane, they're the ones that are probably hiding shit. And no one thinks of them because they're just like, oh, that person's a normal human.
Yeah.
So you just assume they're fully normal. Nah.
How quick did your life start getting better when you got sober? Like,
fucking fast.
Overnight, right?
I felt like that. Really, I did.
Because you're just weird too, because you didn't have to rebuild your career. You're a lawyer and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what I did is I left.
Did you take off some time work?
No. I just kept plugging away, but I worked for myself at that point. I had left the firm.
Okay.
I had to stick with the firm because they're the ones who sponsored me, got my green card because of, I know I immigrated from Canada. I'm still an immigrant, got to go through the process. But
good thing you did it before now.
Exactly. It'd be fucking exponentially harder. But no, I was working out of my house. I had a house in Morrison Ranch at the time. My wife always makes fun of it because it was a loft and our bedroom was off the loft. And I put 2 desks, one for a paralegal and one for me. And so the paralegal would show up every day and work out of that desk.
Really?
And we were there for, it might have been 8 or 12 months. And then I got the office space that I'm currently in, at least half of it. And then we grew even more. So then I started renting 2 spaces.
When did you start your own spot?
About 4 years ago.
How many paralegals you got with you right now?
We got a staff, including paralegals and others. We're at 14, 15.
Oh, wow. Is Colton's one of your paralegals?
He is,
right?
yeah.
Dude, it's so funny. I don't know if he told you, like we met at the gym.
Yeah.
And people like all the time now will try and be like, yo, I want this dude on your podcast. So like, I want to come on your podcast. So he's like, hit me up. And I was like, you know, he's a cool kid. And I'm like, he's like, I got someone I really want to connect you for your show. And I'm like, send him over and I'll let you know what I think, you know. And then he sends over you. I was like, how the fuck do you know this dude? He's like, I'm a paralegal. That's my boss. I was like, oh my God, I would love to have him on my show. So
and like, it's funny because like I always thought about hitting you up and I don't know why I didn't. I just like, it was one of those things you get busy doing your own shit
sure.
and then it might pop up and you got the idea again, but then it leaves you because
plus it
you're
is
doing
somewhat
something else.
awkward. Like I've never asked someone to go on their podcast. So it is kind of awkward. And like, even though it would make sense. I've had certain ones like it fucking for sure would make sense. It's just like it's kind of awkward doing the wording and stuff. So I totally get it. It worked out well.
Yeah, no,
like it was
did.
supposed to.
Yeah. Colton's a funny
kid. Shout out
kid,
to Colton Boosin.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
That is Colton's a good ass little youngster right there, dude.
He's a funny fucking dude, man.
So I met him
like
a few years ago, and he was actually, I think, training. You know, he was going to be a cop. And then something happened, and I saw him like another year or so later, and he's like going to law school or something. And then, I haven't seen him for a while, and then he's a fucking paralegal for you.
Yeah.
But just a smart ass little cool kid.
Yeah. He's a good kid, man. Yeah.
I like talking. It's still like a prison thing. Like I like talk to all the youngsters, like especially at the gym. You know, like all the high school kids and all that shit. You know, it's like I don't know. It's like it just reminds me of like my prison youngsters. It seriously is.
And I'm sure they appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
Anyways, you get sober. Life's going good. Kids now coming.
Yeah.
How many kids?
Actually, I had kids at the time. 2 kids at the time. We had both our girls in Vegas when we lived in Vegas.
Okay. How old
Me
are they
and
now?
Ava, 11 and 13.
How old
Ava's
are you right now?
44.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm an old dude, man.
So, damn. So just 2 girls, huh?
2 girls.
How was that raising those little babies?
I love them.
Yeah.
I love them, dude. I always, like probably every guy, you want a son, right? But the thing I always say, if I had a son, I would ride the shit out of him. Right? I'd be like, this is you open the door. You treat girls like this. You do this, you do this, you do this, which I'm going to raise him to be a man, right? The thing with girls is I just have to love on them, you know, like, and they need everything they need. They don't need from me. They need from mom.
Yeah.
Right? Like my wife, can't say enough good things about her, but she sets the table for them, so to speak. And so I just get to come in and be fun Bobby, which I love. Yeah. And I get a lot of pink in my life, but I got no problems with it, man. I at this point, I'm happy. Never gonna have any more kids.
That's awesome.
But I always say, like, if you have girls and you see another girl dad, like, I feel like we're the happiest because you never have to worry about that little shithead. I gotta worry about other little shitheads dating my daughter.
Yeah.
I had one of them
That'd
come
be
over.
my worry.
So this was my first thing. I'll get your opinion on this, right?
Please.
So my 13-year-old asks me, because I know that she's got a boyfriend, right? 13-year-old.
6th, 7th grade or something? 7th,
8th grade.
Okay, yeah.
8th grade. And so she has a boyfriend named Dane, right? So
Dane, huh?
Yeah. So she's like, hey, can Dane come over? And I remember I asked the whole office this. I asked the whole office this question. And I let the kid come over, but I feel like there's a different level to meet me. Not saying like I'm a special fucking dude, but I'm the dad, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like if you let these guys start coming over to your house, they're going to continually come over your house. But he was a respectful kid. So that's something that's super awkward for me. And this is the other thing. My girls go to a private fucking school. You know, they grow up with multiple pairs of shoes. I grew up with 1 pair of shoes. You know, you went to the one gym, it had like that, you know, universal workout. Like I grew up with very little. I'm not saying I grew up poor, but I grew up with very little. So everything from my perspective, right? Like worrying about how respectful you are, about the words you say, because they'll come home and they'll say something. I'm like, I got to look at my wife. I'm like, are they, because where I'm from, if you say that, you're going to get slapped in the face. I just want to make sure they don't get slapped in the face. And she's like, oh no, that's how the kids talk these days.
Talk nowadays.
I'm like, okay, so yeah, but I love my girls, man. I'd have it no other way.
Awesome. How do you, with the addiction part of it, does stuff still trigger you? Is it completely gone now? Like mine is, I know it's not an option. And clearly you can only say you can stay sober for today, every day or whatever like that. But like no matter what happens to me, it doesn't even ever cross my mind. No matter what it is, does that still happen with you? And if so, like what do you use to like kind of combat it, or any tricks for people?
So for me, it's fitness.
Okay.
Like I fucking work out.
Same.
A
If
lot.
I get mad, I just go to the gym and do cardio, or like literally go get another lift.
Yep. And if I don't, like my mental state is miserable. For me, that's therapy. So if I have stressful days, I definitely feel like, having a nice glass of wine. I don't know why, but wine is like a thing for me because it's just something you'd have with dinner. It was not something usually you would drink.
Maybe
in excess.
I'm glad I missed that whole thing. Like I wasn't like, I went through the whole bar drinking phase in I think a period of like 12 months or like 10 months or something like that, and it was like.
So drinking was never an issue for you? It was more the drugs?
No, and I still don't think like I could be like whatever. I just don't have an off button, but it's like, it's not, here's the deal. When I wake up overdose because I get too blacked out drunk and I go use and I don't even remember leaving the bar using, like, do I still need to try and argue and prove that I'm not an alcoholic because alcohol is not my problem? Like, because I never drank by myself. I never had alcohol in my house at home. I just like to go out and drink and party.
Yeah.
So like the whole wine night, I've never done that. I never had even a beer in my house. So that was always the thing. Like, and that's what my brother uses it for still. Like he's at the bar 5-6 days a week, but there's not a beer in his house. So he's like, I don't even drink at home.
Yeah.
And that was my kind of thing too. So it's like, but then when you wake up in a hospital bed, and it's like literally a miracle that you lived. It's like, I don't need to try and prove that to myself anymore,
Yeah.
Just like the question you asked where it's like, are we really, or what'd you ask before? When we know if we're like really an alcoholic, because you're like, if you're not going to try and like risk that because normal people don't.
Yeah. Normal people don't sit there and think, hey, shit, like what did I do last night? How many people did I, piss off? Like who did, like, yeah, no, like normal people don't think like that. But so, yeah, no, like I might have like an inkling here and there to have a drink to take the edge off.
Does the wife drink?
No.
Not at all?
No, I mean, shit, she might have 2 drinks a year.
Yeah.
But it was funny because like I'll always have people, I don't know if you have the same thing where people will be like, hey, like they get like nervous around me, right? So they're at dinner and they're like, hey, can I drink? I'm like, fuck, fill your boots, man. Like you doing shit doesn't like bother me
It's
at
entertaining
all.
for me usually. Like too, like if I'm ever going out, like that's why like I like to go out when they're like a little drunk because here's the deal, like for one, when they're at the next phase, like getting hammered to where like I can disappear whenever the hell I want. And 2, it's like kind of entertaining, And it's like, it's a coin toss. It's entertaining for a little bit. And then when it's not, I'm out and you guys are drunk, you won't remember, But then I'll get a text an hour later, where'd you go,
See, so that's what I do. I'll go out, but then as soon as people start drinking and get annoying.
I drive home, you know what I'm saying?
I bump out. Yeah. And I'm happy to be home, like wake up refreshed, but.
So you mentioned that you were getting, you're connected to some pretty high people too. Like where have you made some of your connections? Was it just all in business? And if so, like how do you reach out to these people? Because people always are fascinated with me, like how do you know these guys? And like, we all have our own ways, but you're connected to some really, really big names too. So how did that all come about? Was it fucking seeing you on damn TV commerals?
Yeah, honestly.
Because everybody's seen you on commercials.
So simple story, man. There's a guy, you guys should look up, funny fucking commercials, 1-800-NO-CUFFS. And I was asked to shoot a TV show at Sneaky Big, Bob Parsons. They were trying to get into original content.
Okay.
So they flew in Judge Faith, who has a show out on the East Coast, I believe. I think she was Miss America at one point.
Okay.
And then they flew in Darren Kavanoki, who I hadn't met yet. And then I was up there, right? So we shot this TV show. WME, IMG, paid for the TV show. So I made a lot of connections there with WME, IMG, met people from CNN, all these different people. And so Darren, he's a recovering addict himself. So we had that in common, which leads me to a lot of the connections I've had. And then he told me, he's like, hey man, I love your brand and love your commercial. He goes, I think your commercial is better than my commercial. At that point, he was traveling around teaching courses on marketing law firms. And now he uses my material instead of his own. And he said, hey, why don't you come out to LA? And he's not old, but he's older than me. I would say 10, 15 years older than me. And I didn't really know him. And so I said to my wife, I'm like, what is this guy? Like, I mean, I'm going to fly out and meet this dude I've just met shooting a TV show and I know nothing about, right? But he said he would put me on CNN, he would do all this shit. So I was like, what do I got to lose? And I remember when I got sober, I said to myself, I'm not going to say no to any opportunity, any meeting, anything I'm going to take. So I was like, hey, all I got to lose is the cost of the flight and the stay at a hotel, right? So I fly in, he fucking picks me up in his dope ass Mercedes, takes me to this great sushi place, start meeting all these different people. I'm on CNN the next day talking about that dad in Colorado who killed his wife and his kids and buried them in an oil well.
God.
So I did that.
Peterson, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Anyways.
Not Peterson,
I know
but yeah. And then who?
There she is.
No,
there
not
she
the
goes.
Doomsday. It's not the
Robin.
Doomsday couple either. No, because that's the Mormon shit, right? With links to AZ. Yeah, this was different. But anyways.
She just tries to come on every one of my shows. I was literally waiting for it too.
No,
so
we got to bring you on. We got to get a camera over there.
I was waiting for it. She tries to pipe her mouth up in every one of these shows. Come up on roll call.
Yeah. But no, so then I went out, met Darren, did the CNN gig. Then we went to the Lakers game that night. I met like Jenny Buss. I met like Stephen A. Smith. I mean, the dude knew everybody. Like introducing me to the mayor, like it was a Friday night Lakers playing Mavericks.
Oh gosh.
3-4 years ago, right?
Everybody
so Doncic is just
there,
coming out.
yeah.
Yep, LeBron, like everyone. And so then like I was like, holy shit, this dude knows everyone. I remember calling my wife, I'm like, he just knows everybody. And so from there, he just slowly connected me with people. But in hindsight, and I've never really asked him this, I truly believe he was testing me. You know, he was like, hey, he was asking me all these sober questions, and then he'd be like, hey, listen, like, I think you should read this book. And so I'd grab the book, I'd fucking read it, and I'd shoot him a text message. I'd be like, hey, man, just finished this book. Like, hey, do you got another one? He'd shoot me another book, shoot me another book. And then one day he said to me, he goes, hey, you know how many people have come to me and asking to scale their law firm and figure out this shit? He goes, a ton. And he goes, you're the only one that's ever put in any effort. And he goes, I'm happy to help people, but I want to see him put in the effort. And that's what I always tell anyone working for me, the young guys like Colton or even Joe. I'm like, man, put in the fucking work. Especially
Colton hustles his ass off, huh?
100%.
Yeah,
and the best way to get rich, in my opinion, one of the good ways, make a rich man richer. Like, if I can make your life easier and you're rich, you're just going to take me along because it's easy.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like, now we're talking about doing some other things together, which is great. But
like what?
Well, I think we're going to start a company together, more or less maybe join our law firms.
That was my next question. Like, what do you have coming up?
Yeah, and then we're going to travel around. We're going to do seminars on marketing law firms. And then hopefully we're going to probably like essentially franchise our law firms out, either with licensing agreements or franchising agreements.
Wow. And then what kind of, you guys are primarily personal injury?
So I'm personal injury, he's criminal.
Really?
So it's the perfect marriage. Anti-lawyer could be anything. That's the other thing. I think I've limited myself, but I think I can add multiple verticals because anybody loves the anti-lawyer. I mean, we get criminal calls, we get family law calls.
You get criminal calls even?
Yeah, because they like the criminals love me.
Really?
Right? Oh, fuck.
I would love you, but I don't know if I'd want my hand in, like, does that make sense?
Why?
I don't
Be
know.
honest,
I literally don't know.
You think that I'm probably not going to be as effective.
No, the only thing that I would
the
worry is the jury judging you.
jury fuck it. So this is the thing. I
That'd be my only worry.
love telling this fucking story, right?
Right.
So I've tried 36 jury trials. As soon as I got my hands and neck tattooed, I was still at a law firm, mid-sized law firm based out of California.
Shut up. You did that while you were working at a law firm. What did they say? Did they
Fuck, I was making them $1 million a fucking year. They didn't say shit.
You're like, do you want me to leave?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you guys going to fucking do? Yeah. They updated their employee manual after me. They didn't have
no
shit
hand
in it
and
before.
face tats.
Exactly. Yeah. So what was I saying?
I fucking draw a blank right now when you just asked me that. You're talking about...
Oh, so it's the jury, yeah. So everyone was like, you're going to get fired, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. No one's going to, the judges are going to hate you and shit. So I was like, hey, you know what? You probably got a point. So when you pick a jury, it's called voir dire. You're asking the jury questions to determine biases or prejudices they may have.
How many questions do you get with each one of these jurors, too? Because I was always curious about this, how this all works.
So every state's different.
Okay.
So here...
If you have like a big trial, do you have like each juror, you can ask them 5 or 6 questions?
Well, it depends the way you want to do it. I take the jury as a whole.
Okay.
So I'm not limited. I'm limited in time. Here in Arizona, they limit you, I think it's like an hour or 2. In Nevada, we'll voir dire a jury for days.
Really?
Just picking them. Yeah.
Okay.
But one of the first things I would say, actually the first thing, like if I represented you, I'd stand in front of them, then my first thing would say, I would go, hey, listen, my name's Byron Browne. I represent Peter. As you see, I look different than most lawyers. I sound different than most lawyers. I got tattoos running all over my body. It's for some people and it's not for some people. The only thing I ask of you, if this causes you to judge Peter differently just because of my appearance, just let me know right now. And then everyone's like, they shake their head. I was like, is everybody cool? And everyone starts rolling up their sleeves. Everyone has a bald, bearded, tattooed fucking uncle, right? Or friend or somebody. And so the amazing thing about it is it's given me so much more credibility.
Smart.
Because I sit there and I can tell these jurors, they sit there and they start watching. They're like, who the fuck? Like, is that guy supposed to be in fucking jail? Like, why is he sitting there? Is he the lawyer? And like the tension mounts. And then I stand up and I try to be as boombastic as possible, as charismatic as possible. And then I think the bar's been set so low, right? They look at me and they're like, that's got to be the dumbest motherfucker lawyer ever. And then I start talking and they see that I know what I'm doing and they're captivated. Man,
Gotcha.
I see other lawyers talk to the jury and the jury's falling asleep. As soon as I stand up, everyone's like, oh shit.
Yeah, they're probably
like,
waiting.
Something's going to happen now,
Get
right?
on this project. I want to see what this fucker has to say.
The loud guy. And one of the best things was a guy voir dired, Bradley Myers, I'll call him out. I tried a case against him. He voir dired the jury, I think it was for 4 or 5 hours. I went up 20 minutes. And as I go, thank you, I turn around, jury stands up, standing ovation. Judge Delaney hammers down the courtroom, goes, hey, I get it. Mr. Browne's a little bit more entertaining than Mr. Myers, but I need everybody to keep their decorum. And then Brad, after at one of the breaks, he comes over to me, man, he's like, I've never seen a jury do that. He goes, I almost shit my pants.
No way.
10 minutes, jury out, comes back, I win the case unanimously.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, it totally literally makes sense now too, because I was thinking even the criminal offense, because I was talking to my buddy literally about you yesterday, and he was like, because we were trying to figure it out, I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. I guess it's cool for personal injury because it doesn't really matter,
but it's good for everything, bro.
And it just totally makes sense now too. Yeah.
If once you sit, I'd like to think this. Tell me I'm fucking wrong, but like I like to think if you sit and you talk with me, you realize that I'm articulate. You realize I'm educated, right?
Yeah.
I get it. If you just look at me, you know, especially like I dress like this every day. I don't dress like a lawyer. I don't talk like a lawyer.
It's funny. I had Lou Moore. You did a deposition with him or something because I happened to stop at my lawyer's office yesterday, and my other buddy who comes in who's a lawyer at this firm too, and he happened to be talking about it. She's like, what was he wearing? He's like, oh, sweats and a tight shirt. I was like, he showed up to do a deposition wearing sweatpants. So like, oh, absolutely. I was like, oh my God.
Dude, why am I going to fucking change who I am for anybody?
Yeah, that's
crazy. The way I look at it. Like,
I've never even heard of that thing. Yeah.
This is who I am every fucking day. I go to mediations with retired judges and I'd wear this, cut off shorts and a pink shirt.
Really?
And my clients don't say shit to me. Hey, listen, this is how you're going to get. I'm not going to pretend to be anybody else. And that is
I didn't
one
even
of the
know
reasons.
that. I still thought you wore a suit to court and stuff.
Oh, court, you got to wear a suit.
Okay, but
yeah,
like
there's
anything
a rule.
depositions you don't have to or anything?
Don't have to wear it.
Okay.
No. I mean, most lawyers do. I think it annoys most lawyers that I do the things that I do because I never act like they want me to act, which I think annoys them. Because they like that attention that they get, right? It's just like doctors. Like they love telling everyone they're a fucking doctor, right? Because somehow that makes you a better person or more credible. I just think, oh, that's fucking garbage. Like some of the most authentic, loyal people that I've ever met in my life are addicts or done time.
For sure.
They have a rough history.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're gonna learn the lessons, man. That's where you're gonna learn, hey, if I don't treat something right, this very negative consequence could happen. I always say, like the bikers that I know, most respectful people you can come across, because most of the people that
so prison is, bro. Do you want to know how respectful people are in prison? And this still fascinates me. Like, if me and you are literally talking and we're this close to each other talking, and somebody even walks in front of us, within a foot of us, they're gonna say, "Excuse me."
Yeah.
Not even like bothering our conversation, not paying any mind to us, but just because you're walking that close to a dude's personal space. You know what I'm saying?
So this shit might bother you too, right? I hold the door open.
Yeah.
Right? So I always find it fascinating if I'm at like a dance deal or something where there's a lot of traffic coming out, right? I get to the door, I hold the door.
For sure.
You know how many fucking dudes will walk by me and not grab the door? Mm-hmm. And my family's waiting for me. They know I'm going to stand there and hold the door until someone grabs the fucking door.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, this is just basic respect. Like, someone lets you in traffic, give them a fucking wave.
Literally.
That it's that level of stuff.
It's always a perfect analogy. I always use this because like the chase by my house is like, I always open the door for somebody, and then you go and then they open the door for you, and then I always say this, that's why it works like this. That's why you open the door for someone, because then I'm getting ahead of you. The next door you open for me. You know
and that's like, I feel like if everybody was just that basic of
seriously,
nice,
you just dumb it down for them, and it's like literally simple math. That's how the world literally works. You know what I'm saying? Just like you help people, shit's gonna come better to you.
So what's funny, right? When I first came down here from Canada, I made a bunch of observations, but the cliche of Canadians being nice is obviously true, because I came down one of the first times I remember being at Costco, right? And my wife and I are checking out, and Linda's helping us, say, right? And I said, hey, Linda, how you doing today? And she just fucking stares at me, and I go, I apologize. Like, your name tag says Linda. I assume that was your name. If it's not your name, I apologize. She goes, no, that's not the problem. My name's Linda. I was like, sorry, did I do something? What did I do? She goes, I've worked here 8 years. She goes, no one's asked me how. Not one person that's come through here has asked me how I'm doing.
Wow,
I'm like,
that too,
that's fucked up. Yeah. Like I go to the gas station, the guy helping me, I'm like, hey, bro, how's it going? Like, those people, not enough people are just be nice, man. Common decency goes a long fucking way. That's the other thing. And I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of my success is based upon just me being a polite person.
100%.
Me having manners. I always say, man,
just being a good person. People want to help you out.
Put me in a clubhouse or the White House, I can fucking fit in. I can clean my mouth up if I'm in the White House if I need to.
I always say that.
When I go to court, I don't have to swear. It's just who I am, right? Yeah. And I want to be authentic. And I think most people, especially when we do this social shit, that's why they love it. They love the authenticity.
For sure. What other goals do you have now set for yourself? For real, do you even set goals? And if they do, is it a money thing? Is it like a traveling thing or relationships at home?
You know what? It's funny. I guess it all involves money, although money's not my basic trigger. But like,
money doesn't make you happy, but it takes money to do things.
100%. It makes life a lot easier.
For sure.
Right? I want to blow up on YouTube.
Okay.
So I've been pushing YouTube as much as I can.
Let them know your YouTube channel, so I go check it out.
Yeah, no, Anti-Lawyer. Go subscribe. Every social platform, Anti-Lawyer. That's my big thing. Okay. I've been working with NBC on a TV show. I mean, this is probably like, I don't know, the 4th or 5th time I've been approached to do a TV show, so I'm well aware it's hard.
Reality or?
Yeah, so it'd be me being a judge.
Okay.
Maybe like instead of your traditional courtroom, more like a Game of Thrones is kind of what we're pitching. So it'd be like
off sleeve thing.
Yeah. We're gonna keep it authentic, and we're gonna have people down below more like a medieval sort of style, but it's gonna be more authentic. And I think it'll work. But even if that doesn't work, because there's part of me, and we kind of got into this before we started talking, but there's part of me that doesn't think like TV's the angle to go anymore, especially when I talk to people who've blown up on YouTube and they're like, why would you do that? Like, you give up so much of your freedom. I'm a big guy who likes to be independent and do whatever the fuck I want to do. I hate being told what to do. So YouTube, I think, is a natural progression. I hired a guy who's helping me. Big shout out to Joe Brown. Check him out. But I hired Joe, who's helping me with all those things, but that's my big thing, man. I want to blow up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I want to do TV shows on YouTube. I got a couple other ideas of different TV shows.
Go check it out and subscribe too. Like,
please do.
You have to tell them to. Like, 80% of my people that watch my shows don't even subscribe to my stuff. Like, they literally have to. They have to type in my name to go watch my stuff, and they don't subscribe to my shit. So like, click the subscribe button right now.
Please do. Yeah,
and my channel too.
And everybody's support. I feel like that's another thing you just got to do. I think some guys are like shy to support other guys for whatever fucking. I don't get it, man.
Tell me if you're wrong here, but here's where I am, and I realize I'm from like a different cloth, so I can be a little hard sometimes. But like, I'm like this. All my dudes on Facebook. It's like pretty much more family related than my Facebook is not like my Instagram. So when I do it on YouTube, I send it to everybody in my Facebook Messenger, right?
Smart.
And I'm like this. I'll get like just like and comment. That's it. I'll get 12 likes from my Facebook, and I'm just like. And those will be the same dudes bitching like, you got it so good, you got it so easy. Like, oh, dude, it must be nice to be you. And it's like, I can't even get you to fucking give me 22 seconds of your time and like and subscribe to one of my videos. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why do you think you're not where you want to go in life? You know what I'm saying? Because people are just so used to just playing this fucking pity, sorry for me shit and not doing any work to change themselves. And it's like, if you're in it, I think I said this last week on my show, but it's like, if you have a shitty life, and you've had a shitty life for the past weeks or months or whatever it is, and you continue to do the same fucking thing the next day, it's only your fucking fault.
See, and I think that's the big thing about sobriety, right?
Yeah.
It's your fucking fault.
Yes.
Right? Like, you have to be self-accountable. I don't think a lot of people want to be self-accountable. That's why we have this culture that's currently, in my opinion, soft.
Yep.
They don't want to hear the bad news. They want everything to be, unicorns and rainbows, and I'm sorry, not everything's fucking unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to be criticized if you're too harsh about something. But my opinion, like, harsh is, it's funny you talk about Colton. I said to Colton, I go, bro, a lot of things I'm going to say to you are going to be harsh. But I believe that's the best way for you to learn.
For sure.
And I want you to know, I wouldn't say this shit if I didn't care about your personal growth. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you the advice. And I think that's true love too. When you're seeing someone, the people closest to you should be giving you the harshest advice about who you are. But that self-accountability to me is huge. And that's where I think everybody who's throwing rocks at everybody else should look in the mirror. Because anybody doing anything worth anything, they don't have time. Like, I'm pretty sure you don't have fucking time to go on my web and call me a bunch of fucking names. No, you don't, man. Just like me. I don't have time to even leave a positive comment.
I didn't have time to respond to people that talk shit to me. Yeah, 100%. I don't even respond by.
Yeah. So I just feel bad for those guys.
For sure.
Because I'm like, bro, you're missing out on so much life.
Absolutely.
Go and live your life. Don't worry about me. Go focus on yourself.
One last thing, and I want to get, because I feel like this could help a lot of people. It's still racking my brain. It's one of the fascinating things about your story is the fact that you were like a fucking DF student and you went to law school. Mm-hmm. How? Because I feel like I knew pretty young I wasn't a school person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did sports, and that's how I got through school. Like, I was literally cool with C's and D's as long as it wasn't F, so I could play sports. But I would have known I'm never going to go to law school. Like, I don't even know if I would have tried the college thing. If I did, I would have done the same thing with high school. I'd probably just try to cheat my way through college. How did you go from being like a D and F student to saying like, fuck, I'm going to go do law school and actually doing it? And was it really tough because you actually weren't technically smarter or book smart or what?
Yeah. So no, I definitely wouldn't say like I'm book smart. It's definitely not something that comes easy to me. And
you just let it try twice as hard as most people you think, or what?
That's what I did. I just think I outworked everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I did
It's
in
a
law
simple
school.
answer with the world, and it does work. So yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, I had a strict schedule. I'd wake up at a certain time. I would study from a certain time. I would do this at a certain time. And that's where I think like the OCD of my addiction helped me. Because I was
and you're
like,
not in bars, so you have nothing deterring you daily. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the problem. People want to fuck around and hang out with their friends and all that stuff. Like when you're in a shitty spotlight, you know what I mean? It's like, I hate myself this week. I hate my life. I have no money. It's the weekend here. Let's go to fucking hi-fi. You know what I'm saying? It's like, spend your weekend at the bar, and then just like Monday comes around, it's the same shit. Why do you think you're miserable? You know?
Right. And all of those people that are doing that on the weekend would look at someone like you and other people doing positive things and be like, fuck, man, that guy's got it easy. Like, what the fuck is he
people
doing?
think that
like, man, I want to talk to him. How do I get
they
it?
think I'm in a family business. They're like, oh, you're dad. I'm like, all right, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a family
excuses.
business. There's 0 people in my family are successful. Like literally, I got out of prison and became more successful than anybody in both sides of my family.
Well, and
like,
it's
literally.
the same with me. Like, I don't have anyone on my side of the family. I don't even talk to most of my family anymore.
Same.
Because there's a lot of people I cut out of my life. That's another thing I tell people, man. You are a product. I know it's a cliche. It's pushed by everyone on every platform.
No,
but
you're absolutely right,
you're a
though.
product of the 5 people that are
100%.
closest to you. And I always tell people, whether it's your dad, your mom, or whoever, if they're not adding value to your life and you're that serious about being successful, they need to get the fuck out of your life. There's people that bog me down, like texting. I'm like, guys will text me. I'm like, and then they just routinely text me all day. I'm like, man, I don't have time to sit here and text people all day. Obviously you do. And that's probably one of the reasons you're at where you're at. And I'm not being a dickhead when I say that.
It is what it is, yeah.
But that's just my opinion about being productive. You have to constantly be on that. Like you said before, you're like, man, my brain doesn't stop. My girlfriend gets annoyed because I'm just constant. That's what it takes. You know the hip hop preacher? You'll get it once you want it as much as you want to breathe.
Oh yeah, he's
right.
dope.
I think it's Eric Thomas.
Yes.
He cleans that quote up better, but that's what you have to be. You have to be obsessed with it. And when you're obsessed with the drink and the drug, you got to shift that into something positive. So
But
that's
here's
why I
the
would
great
say,
thing is you're obsessed with the drink and drugs, that you can literally put 1/10 of the obsession of that into the positive stuff and it's going to work. Still, you don't have to put all of it.
it's crazy, right? That's the other thing. I think people think this is super fucking hard.
It's not, yeah.
It
Once you get
isn't.
over the hump of the first few, whatever it is, whether it's days, weeks, or months, something like that, once you get over the hump and you get into your new routine, you're like, what the fuck? Why did I not do this earlier? It's like people give up before they see the miracle happen.
Yep. You got to move through the uncomfortable. And that's the other thing about getting sober, right? You've been at like the lowest point of your life. You fought through to be sober, so you know what the ugly looks like.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of like easy at that point, right? You're like, hey, when I was on my couch sweating my ass off, popping fucking Xanax just so I wouldn't put a gun in my mouth, that was the lowest of the low. And so the other saying I love is like, rock bottom's made more millionaires than privilege ever will. And I firmly believe it, man. I firmly believe it. I see so many people with privilege and they just underperform in every aspect because they had something handed to them.
Yeah.
Once you've worked your ass off and you've been through fucking hell, shit, man, you're not taking shit from me.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll outwork anybody, right? I'm not saying other people don't work hard,
Same.
but I think that's your fucking mentality. Is it's
completely
like,
agree.
hey, I'm the top dog, come and get me.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, this was a fucking pleasure today, man.
Yeah,
I'm
I loved
sorry we
it,
got
brother.
here. We're gonna put all his links in the description and everything. But thank you for being here.
I appreciate
go check
it.
out all his stuff. Subscribe to my YouTube and stuff, and then we're gonna see you guys next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and leave us some feedback. We would love to know what you think. You can find everything discussed in this episode and more in our show notes below or petermeyerhoff.com. I am Peter Meyerhoff, and you've been listening to the Roll Call with Chappy podcast.